Before you start work, evaluate yourself. Never operate your chainsaw if you're not in good physical condition, fatigued, or under the influence of any drugs, alcohol, or other substances or illness which might impair vision, dexterity, or judgment. If you get tired, take a break and drink lots of fluids to stay hydrated.
We've got all of our items from our needs list. Our equipment's all checked out and ready to use, so let's get started.
Let's go.
We're going to fell 2 trees today because we want to demonstrate 2 different felling techniques. First, the conventional cut, and second, the open face cut. Then, we'll go through the process of limbing and bucking up the tree.
Here's our first tree, this large pine. The first thing you want to do whenever falling, limbing, or bucking a tree is to analyze the situation and plan your work to get the job done safely and efficiently. Always remember, plan your work and work your plan. First rule of thumb, don't do this work at night or when visibility is limited or if the weather is bad. Only use your chainsaw in daylight hours. Next, if you're going to be felling a tree and it's a windy day, you may want to hold off on that work, waiting for calmer conditions, or call in a trained professional to do the work. Wind can drastically affect the direction in which a tree can fall, creating extremely unsafe or even deadly working conditions. Now, when you're planning your work, make sure there are no structures or other property in the vicinity that could possibly become harmed while you're working or felling trees. And never work on a tree standing or lying on the ground that is remotely close to a power line in any direction. And never assume that power lines are not hot. If there are power lines within the area, stop and call in the proper authority for advice or a trained professional to complete the work. In our case, we know there's no property or power lines that we need to be concerned with.
Now, the next thing we want to do is check out the condition of the tree and the immediate area surrounding the tree, and then figure out what direction we want the tree to fall. If you have a tree where you notice a lot of rot, like this, it's very possible that it's rotted or even hollow in its core, and unless you're a trained professional with the proper equipment, you shouldn't attempt to fall this tree. It could break or snap while you're cutting, creating what could be very fatal conditions. Check the diameter of the tree and make sure you have a chainsaw fitted with an approved bar and chain that is sufficient enough in length to cut the tree safely. Take a good look at the canopy of the tree and look for dead or loose limbs that could fall while you're working. Back in the day, these were referred to as widow makers. When cutting a tree, the process sets up harmonics or vibrations in the tree that can be just enough to dislodge these limbs. Many a cutter has become seriously and even fatally injured by those falling limbs, thus the term widow makers.
When we're determining the direction that we want the tree to fall, there are 2 factors that we must consider. First, the natural lean of the tree, and second, if the tree appears to be weighted more on one side than the other with more or larger limb. Both can have a dramatic effect on which way the tree is going to fall, and that may not be in the same direction as you want it to fall. If the tree has a noticeable lean such as this, and you don't want the tree to fall in the direction of the lean, you should probably call in that trained professional to take the tree down. If the tree is fairly straight but has more limbs on one side than the other, that weight on this side of the tree can result in the same conditions as our tree that was leaning. The extra weight will make the tree want to fall in that direction.
This pine is standing nice and straight with evenly weighted limbs. So we're going to want to fell this tree in this direction in a spot between these 2 trees further out. Lou is going to place the stake in the area that we want this tree to land. We've determined that this tree is nice and solid, and we've looked up at the canopy, didn't see any snags or branches, and we know exactly where we want the tree to fall. But before we begin our felling process, we want to clean up around the area and then create a safe exit strategy for ourselves once the tree begins to fall. Once your tree begins to fall, you'll want to plan 2 exit paths located opposite the planned direction of the fall, about a 45-degree angle, as shown in this diagram. Make sure these paths are clear of any obstacles. Once the tree begins to fall, you'll exit on one of these paths opposite the tree, keeping a sense of what is happening to the tree as you are retreating. Never stand behind the tree when it is falling. It could possibly snap and the trunk may shoot rearward with a tremendous amount of pressure. All right, Louie, now we're ready. Let's go get this tree down.
Okay, Jen, but before we fell our tree, we can see some lower limbs that may cause some harm to surrounding trees as ours fall. So first we're going to remove these limbs. Never work on a ladder or any other insecure support. Never cut anything beyond your reach with your chainsaw. and never use your chainsaw above shoulder height. To do this job safely, we're going to use a specially designed pole pruner to remove these limbs. When using one of these pruners, make sure you have read the instruction manual thoroughly to fully understand the proper and safe way to operate it.